Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Jesus and Justice with Dr. Tiff. I have with me an amazing, beautiful woman. She has 25 years of experience in marketing, and now she is the acting president of Kentucky State University. President Clara R Stamps, how are you?
Good morning, Dr. Tiff. So grateful to be with you today.
Oh, I'm so grateful to have you. So we have a lot to talk about. So let's just dive into it. How has your faith in God got you through difficult times?
Well, I told everybody I was raised by my uneducated grandmother, who instilled in me in a very early age the importance of having God at the center of your life. And of course, that has guided me throughout my life. My grandmother's favorite scripture was Psalms 1, and Psalms 1 talks about the company in which one keeps. And so being raised by a grandmother, you learn very early in life the importance of your family name. And I tell people all the time I was destined to go into marketing, which is all about brand and reputation, because that's one thing my grandmother instilled in us always: don't you leave out of this house embarrass me, so remember the importance of your name and your calling to God. And so my faith is at the center of who I am. I know very clearly who I am, and I know my purpose in life is to serve others. And so because I stayed in Bible study, I tell people growing up, it's so funny. Some of my closest classmates, Robert Jones, Geneva Jones' son, and Cisco, 20 Acres, we all grew up in the church, and we spent more time in church than we did anywhere else. And Bible studies and vacation Bible school. So I know who I am, and I know whose I am, and that's kept me grounded. And so it's very important for me that people know that I am a woman of faith and that I'm guided by my faith.
Wow, that's amazing because, I think you and I both know we know individuals that they started out with that foundation with God, but then it seems as if once they have made it, they have sort of strayed away, that talking about God, talking about Jesus Christ is not popular in some settings. And so sometimes we transition from God to talking about a higher power or the universe or anything like that. But I'm just a believer that if I stand up for Jesus, Jesus will stand up for me. And so it's not the job that woke me up this morning. It's not the job that gave me grace and mercy. Because see, here's the thing. This job, our job, Kentucky State, me working at the institution that I'm at, the thing about it is that they can say at any time your services are no longer needed. But God is the same God yesterday, today, and forevermore. He never changes on us, even when we've given him reasons, So you're working as the acting president of Kentucky State University, and you're working on your doctorate at Morehead. So how are you able to juggle all of this?
Well, you definitely have to be disciplined, time management, and definitely have to prioritize your days and nights. My dad said to me the other night, because my parents live with me here in Kentucky, and he said, "When are you planning to sleep?" Because he was waking up through the night, and he was passing by my office, and he's like, "You're still up," And so sometimes you may be up for 24 hours. In a day in order to get work done and to get school work done. But you do have to make sacrifices. And it helps when you have a strong support system that your husband, your children, your family members, and your friends understand that you're working on something that is going to benefit not just yourself, but the family as a whole and the community as a whole. And so having support system and having them to understand the importance of the work that you're doing is important. But with that said, when I'm present, I'm present. And so sometimes people have to understand, this is my time for my husband, this is time for my children. And so I have to clearly communicate that people in my life are important to me, just as important as the work that I do in my life and the things that I do to better my community and family.
Wow, I love that because some of us we haven't grasped that we don't know how to juggle between our career and our family and our friends, and it seems as if one of those entities will suffer. The children won't get as much attention. You won't be all dedicated into your marriage or relationship or to your job. So the fact that you have time management, that's so key, that a lot of us, we sit around and we waste time. Whether it's on social media, there's so many people that I see on social media, and they are on social media all day, and you wonder, how are you able to get anything done? And you're on social media all the time. Now, what inspired you to get into higher education?
Well, you stated earlier, I am a marketing professional. And of course, we can work in any industry, because being a marketing professional is all about understanding who the customer is and what the needs are of the customer. And so I can work in any industry. And so when I was working in tourism and hospitality and decided to transition, I had said to my husband, I was like, I'm ready to go back to school. I had aspirations of law school very early in my career. And my husband was like, fine, stop working, go to school full time. And so we made that sacrifice in order for me to do that. But on my journey of being in school, my business law professor said to me, you would be really great working at the law school. And I think that you should, meet the dean. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not interested. I'm gonna focus on, the goals that I've set for myself. But one day I got a call to come outside of class, and it was the dean of the law school. And he said, look, I've read your papers, and, I really need you to come to work at the law school. And so that sort of shifted me into higher education, because he would not accept no. And so that's how I ended up going into the higher education field. Being passionate about education, growing up in the Vicksburg School District, many of my professors and teachers were graduates of Alcorn State University or of Jackson State University. I still write my first grade teacher, Mrs. Crump. I talked to Mr. Sheriff the other day, my senior teacher in English. And so I, had really close relationships with my professors and teachers, and so wanted to go and work for an HBCU, and so transitioned from Mississippi College to Alcorn State University. And that's how I got started in the field.
Yeah, and that's where I had the pleasure of meeting you, and you did a wonderful job at Alcorn. How did you feel when they told you, hey, we want you to serve as the acting president of Kentucky State University? Were you scared?
Well, I in all honesty, I said no, to be honest with you. And over the years, I've had several individuals to say to me, you need to go into the president track. You have all of the qualities that's necessary to be a successful president. That the most important quality is loving students. And then they said, I have a natural ability to adjust to the people that I am working with, whoever's in the room. That's who I'm paying attention to. And that I'm fair. I'm firm, but I'm fair as a leader. And so it was like, those are natural qualities of being a president. But I'm not interested. I don't feel that that's my calling from God to be a president. And so initially, when I was approached about it, I said no. And then it's funny that I had to pray. I said, well, let me pray about it. And so Esther sort of popped into my spirit. And so God, said to me, you were prepared for such a time as this. I'm working in higher education, something you learn very quickly, or something I learned very quickly, that higher education is all about people, place, and politics. And working at Alcorn State with Merle Evers, she really sort of mentored me and told me, because I don't do politics well. I'm naturally a very honest person. I call it as I see it. And so, Merle said to me, very clearly, she said, being that she was the first woman to serve as the president of NAACP, that, politics is a natural part of life. You will play politics, or politics will play you. And so that was a very important lesson for me to learn. And she taught me some very important things of how to navigate politics. And so I'm grateful for having the opportunity to sit under such a person as herself.
Wow, wow. Esther is one of my favorite stories in the Bible. What have you learned about yourself along this journey?
Well, something that I learned about myself throughout my entire career is that, I went to a training very early on when I got into higher education administration. And in that training, it said that And of course, we all know this, that a person's perception is definitely reality. And you know that as a Black woman, we suffer from double jeopardy and sometimes triple jeopardy because we are Black, we are female, and the natural stereotypes that come with being a Black female. If you raise your voice, they don't consider that passion. They may consider that you're angry. That you're aggressive, that you're this and that. And so the politics of navigating the space of being a woman and female having to deal with sexism and racism is extremely difficult. But over the years, I've learned to control my own peace and to navigate that you're definitely entitled to your opinion of me, but your opinion of me does not change who I am. I am in charge of my own happiness. Something that I tell all of my teams is that you're responsible for your own emotions and I'm responsible for my own emotions, and that we are responsible for our actions, our non-actions, and our inactions. And something that I learned early on in those trainings were to give my team members an opportunity to evaluate me, that I shouldn't just be evaluating them. They should be able to give me constructive feedback as well, and we should be able to grow and become a better team. And so I've been very successful at managing my teams and working together with my team members. I have had people to go on to be great leaders, and that's something that I'm extremely proud of. And so that's something that I learned very, very early in my career to do.
Wow. What does leadership look like? Because I like what you just said. You don't only just critique your team, you allow your team to critique you. But so many people, there are some leaders where they only want a team around them that is going to basically be a yes man or a yes woman. If you disagree with me, then I got to cut you from my team, or if I don't get you now, I'm gonna get you later. What are your thoughts on that? Because I think with leadership, like you said, we have a right to be corrected. Although we're leaders, we're not God. We're human. We're gonna make mistakes. What are your thoughts on leadership?
Well, my leadership philosophy is very simple. I believe in people and possibilities. And I know that when people come together, great things can happen. And so because I believe in the power of higher education to change one's outcome, I tell people all the time that higher education is all about the human potential and allowing people to reach their God-given potential. I truly believe that. And so I work hard at that. That does not mean we will not sin, that we will not make mistakes. We are human. And so I try to teach my team members to have grace. We can give grace too, right? Mm-hmm. And so if a team member comes in and they're having a bad day, they could be having a bad week. But I think when you have open lines of communication, you're able to talk through and have courageous and difficult conversations that really helps. My team members are very comfortable saying to me, oh, no, when I was senior vice president, oh, no, SVP, we don't need to do that. Or now saying to me, no, Prez, let's not go that route. And then we have a conversation about it. We weigh the pros and the cons, and then we make the decision that will be in the best interest of the greater good and what will benefit, most importantly, our students first. And so I think that that's a level of maturity that every leader should work through. I mean, it's difficult. The first time I was evaluated, it's eye-opening to hear how someone perceives something you said or something you did when that was not your intent. Mm-hmm. But again, if it is your intent to grow as the team, then you have to have those difficult conversations and you have to be able to work through. You have to be able to say, well, how can we do that differently? Or how could I have responded differently? What would have worked for you in that situation? And then, of course, with prayer and meditation, you become a better person. Mm-hmm. It's just like Muhammad Ali. He believed that he was great. So guess what? He was great. So a man think it is he. You can change your circumstances. Prayer works, and you can pray to become a better individual. And that's what we do as a team. I have all kinds of people on my team with all kinds of personalities, and we learn to give each other grace, and we learn how to bring out the best in each other, because that's what a team is all about. All of my team members have to read the book, Winning with Accountability. That is a book that talks about how do you win as a team and how do you prevent failures on your team. And so that's been very helpful in helping us stay the course as well.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. How do you deal with at HBCU particularly, how do you deal with different personalities from like students, parents, colleagues, whomever, that may not be very pleasant? And like you said, we're human. And especially if you may catch a person like this is the wrong day. Please, not today. How do you deal with people that may not be as pleasant, where your flesh, you want to go off, but we know that you have to remain professional, but sometimes it can be an arduous task.
Well, one of the things, I mentioned very early that my grandmother's favorite scripture was Psalms 1, and it talks about the company in which one keeps. Don't sit at stand or be in the midst of the ungodly. And so one of the ways, that I've able to do that, I was at Alcorn State for almost 10 years. And in that 10 years of time, I never went to lunch with people that I worked with. Now, I would go to lunch if a student asked me to go lunch, or I would go with my team members. But because I deal with such confidential information and high level information, and a lot of times people will want to get in your circle just to get information. So to not appear rude, or, again, when you say to someone, oh, I can't discuss that with you, and then you can be looked at a certain way as not being. So it's difficult. When you read research, you'll see that Black women in leadership deal with isolation. And that's isolation because they can't get into the circles, the white dominant circle or the male dominant circles. And that a lot of times that they have undue competition and hate from women who look like them. Well, you're in that circle and you think you're different. And how do you navigate those waters? One of the things that I've been able to not only isolate, but be a part of the conversations at the same time, dealing with people on an individual level. But if you stay focused to what your purpose and your mission is, which is something that I know why HBCUs were established, right? I know what their purpose is. I know what their foundational missions are and what they represent. All HBCUs are not the same. They all are different, given, where they're located, given the place in which they operate. And so I clearly understand that and how to navigate that space. And so I often tell people that you have to deal with people individually. People can look like they may come from the same background, they have the same experience, but just because we look alike as Black women, our experiences are different. You can't make the assumption that we're all the same. And so I try to, even though I have to isolate to protect the institution in which I work at, I'm very strategic as how I become a part of the environment in which I work.
Wow. Which brings me to my next question. Oftentimes as Black women, as you stated earlier, we have two things against us. We are the minority both ways. We are African American and we are women. But what I have found in my journey, and I know this is not everyone's journey, but there are so many women who can relate to this. I have found that some of the Black women that I have looked up to didn't always treat me well, didn't treat me well. And some of the biggest enemies that I have had working in the land of higher education have been Black women. And it at first it bothered me, especially when I first started out, because I couldn't understand that it's a blessing. We only represent 1%. Black women only represent 1% of PhDs in the world. And like you said earlier, what your perception of me is, where your mind is far from what I'm thinking. I'm just here trying to get the job done. You worrying about how somebody dressed, how somebody look, how young this person is this person jockeying for my job? And what has been hurtful is that some of the Black women that I have asked to help me along this journey, that I have admired, that I have looked up to, it has been failed promises. It has been, some of those women have tried to set traps of trying to hurt me. And so many women can relate to this. Why do you think that women, period, particularly African American women, why we have a hard time lifting each other up. Because see, when I heard that you were the acting president, I immediately reached out to you that same day and said, congratulations. You know, I have never struggled with that, because just because God is blessing you, that doesn't mean that my light is dim. So what do you say to that?
Well, I say to that is that I truly believe at the core of who I am that we all can win.
Yes.
And I think that it's sometimes difficult. Sometimes people see if Dr. Tiff is great and doing great things, then I can't be as great as she is, not knowing that you may be the stepping stone to help them reach their new level of existence. Mm-hmm. And I think that as I have plenty of mentees, you know, I've never turned a young lady around who's asked me to mentor her. Never. And I would always say, now I'm going to be very limited. Like if I have a lot of mentees at one time, I'd be very limited in the amount of time that I can give you, but I am willing to work with you. But I need you to understand this, because I think if a young lady asks for assistance, that we have a responsibility and duty as a Black woman to do that, right? And so I often tell my mentees, there's a difference between Black girl magic and Black girl mess. And the number one thing you have to identify in yourself is you have to pray for the spirit of jealousy to leave you. That's just not something, as human beings, we are naturally jealous. As human beings, we naturally see something and we may covet it, but you have to pray that spirit leaves you. You have to pray to be able to champion people on. You have to pray to be able to recognize when you may have a feeling of envious in something that someone else has. And so I'm very aware of that. I don't have a very strong, it's funny that I work in marketing, but I'm a very private person. I am an introvert, a true introvert. So I'm not the type of person that will boast about what I have or what I'm doing or what's going on in life. That's very difficult for me to put myself out front, right? But you have to learn to balance, because people need to see that they can do what you can do. People need to be able to look at Dr. Tiff and say, hey, Dr. Tiff has started this great podcast, this great radio show. I wonder how I can do that. I wonder if Dr. Tiff will help me. And they need to be able to approach you and get some direction from you. So knowing the difference between Black girl magic and Black girl mess is something that really helps. And this is something I learned from Dr. Vashti McKenzie. Mm-hmm. Was at a conference and she came on and she started to talk and she strayed from her speech that she had. And she said she wanted to share something and she began to talk about this horrible boss she had. And I was thinking like, man, I didn't have a horrible boss, but I had a horrible coworker. And I was thinking in the, along just listening to her story, and she was talking about how she was praying for this person and how her prayers were all wrong, and that it came into her spirit to pray for their prosperity, to pray that whatever it is in their heart that is making them unhappy, to pray that God would release that. And they would be happy, that praying for God to give them promotion and whatever it is that they want in life. And it something clicked in me, and it taught me that you should pray for your enemies, that you should pray for those who misuse you, that you should pray for all people, no matter what, you know. And so that was a real growing moment for me, and something that my grandfather told me as a little girl, and he meant this for my husband. And, you know, because he always told me, he said, you know, you're going to meet a man, but he would say, don't want nothing that don't want you. You know, you're going to know if he loves you. You're going to know if he wants to be your husband. But I use that in every aspect of my life. You know, I don't want to be working at a place that doesn't want me to work there. I don't want to belong to a club that doesn't want me there. So I use that in every aspect of my life. And you'll know that from how people treat you, right? Because if people love you, they're going to love you in the way that you need to be loved. They're going to value the things that you value. And so I think that for women, you have to release that and have those difficult conversations with one another to say, yes, we all can win. We can champion each other on. My best friends, you know, they are successful women. And that does not mean we have not had struggle over the years, but we love each other through our good times and our bad times, and being mature enough to do that. knowing that life circumstances does not determine who you are or whose you are. We came into this world with nothing. I tell my mentees this all the time, and you're going to leave with nothing. That should keep you very grounded on what is important in life and what is not important in life. And true happiness does not have to do with material things. They have to deal with the people that you choose to have in your life and the people you choose to love. And loving yourself is one of the most important things you can do. You're incapable of loving others until you truly are capable of loving yourself.
I love it. I love what you just said about, we had nothing when we came into this world and we'll leave without nothing, because God doesn't care about our titles, our resume. And it made me think about Job in the Bible, how Job had everything. And remember when Satan went to Jesus, and I'm paraphrasing it, he said, "Can I have Job?" And Jesus said, "You can have him, but you can't kill him." And when Job went through everything, he lost his cattle, he lost everything, his servants, and then the unthinkable happened. All 10 of his children died. And what did Job do? Instead of something probably what I have done, I probably would have lost my mind, but Job went into his home. The Bible says he ripped off his clothes, he shaved his head, and he wept and he started praising God. And what he said reminded me of what you just said. He said, "Naked did I come out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return." And so I think that that is what we all need to understand, is that God is not impressed about our PhDs, our titles, what we drive, what kind of home we live in, what our last name is, because we are seeing at a time where people are checking out of here left and right. And God does not discriminate how old you are, what color you are, what background you come from, how on fire you are for him. When it's your time, it's your time. And I just want him to say, "Servant, well done." I don't want to get ready. I want to already be ready. So I'm so glad that you have not lost who you are, because I have seen this time and time again where people forget where they come from. Some people, they're on this high level and they look down, but I have seen the wrath of God where we can idolize people, we can idolize things, and God shows you, "I am God. You will not put anything or anyone else before me." Now, speaking of a testimony, when you went to Kentucky State, you went to be the vice president of branding, and now you are the acting president. Can you minister to the people right now to show this wasn't something that you were looking for, how God can put us in positions that we didn't even ask for?
All right. Well, absolutely. I tell people all the time that it's important to be a sponge. When you are present in a room, just because you come in there in one position doesn't mean that you can't learn every aspect of how the organization operate. And as a marketing professional, that's what we do. We learn every aspect of how things work in order to be able to analyze and come up with necessary solutions to solve whatever it is that the organization wishes to do, which means that I've worked very closely in my 15 plus years in academia with vice presidents from every aspect of the institution, from academics to student affairs. I've solved many problems over the years for many vice presidents. As the senior vice president of brand identity and university relations here at Kentucky State, I was in charge of not only alumni relations and fundraising, development, public relations and media relations, the marketing department, and also certain aspect of facility management. But I worked very closely with academic affairs and university college and pre-college academy, and a lot of the programs that are instrumental in touching students' lives, help solving problems for the Office of Admissions. And so all over, you're exposed to everything that happened at the institution, from working with public records and the Office of the General Counsel to working with the internal auditor. And so one of the things that people say about me, I can remember very early in my career here in Kentucky State, probably had not been here 3 to 6 months. And I got this call and pulled out of a meeting. They said it was urgent, that I needed to come. And so I answered the call, and the professor told me what was going on. And I told the professor the appropriate process to follow. And she goes, "Yeah, I don't want to do that. I'm calling you because I know that you're going to handle this in the right way. You're going to, do what needs to be done. And so clearly outside of my area of expertise, but again, I sent my assistant back into the meeting to say that, I was not going to be able to continue the meeting. And I went to help the professor solve the problem that she had. And so people recognize when you have at the core of who you are, what you truly value. And people know I truly value our students. And that I'm here to ensure that our students are successful. And so a lot of people look and say, oh, well, she don't have the traditional track of what is necessary to be an acting president or to be a president. But individuals who know me and work with me very closely know that I have the ability, because I understand every aspect of this institution. And not only that, my background, having worked in tourism, hospitality, understanding government and the legislative process, having worked a number of years with legislators on the state and federal level, that my understanding goes beyond just higher ed. And so I say all the time to people, even though you don't prepare for a certain track, God knows where he wants you to go and what he wants you to do. And I said earlier, I said no initially when they came to me, and when they came back and said, you are the most qualified person. You've helped solve problems. All of the successes that Kentucky State has had, your hand has touched those. We need you to step in and to help us find the best candidate for president for Kentucky State moving forward. How could I say no to that? Because I value my students and I want my students to have the best possible leader here to take Kentucky State onward and upward, which is in their motto, a part of who this institution is, and knowing its legacy. Kentucky State's been here for 135 years. It will continue to be, and has survived against great odds, just as other HBCUs have. So I couldn't say no to that. And so I stepped in knowing that this road would be difficult, but knowing that God would see me through it.
We're living in a time where basically there are so many things that are virtual. Churches that have never been on social media are now forced to be on social media. Classes now, a lot of classes are, even if institutions are open, a lot of classes are still virtual, taking COVID measures. What is the key to branding yourself? People often ask the question, well, how do I get my name out there? What is the key to branding yourself and making yourself marketable?
So I tell people very simply that branding is all about who you are, what you do, and why it matters to the individuals in which you serve. That being said, that's still a very difficult concept for people to really understand. Who you are, you can't be something you're not, which means you can't look like the Ivy Leagues if you're not an Ivy League. You need to be true to who you are. You may be able to take on aspects of an Ivy League, and you may be able to establish partnerships and internship opportunities and some things with them, but you need to remain true to who you are. And you need to understand exactly what you were founded to do. So that's why it's so important to understand the foundational mission of institutions or organizations in which you work for. And then you need to understand why it matters. What is the true purpose of why you exist? And sometimes that can be somewhat difficult, but again, with everything, I think that, how my grandmother used to say, don't go out and embarrass, it was internal. And so sometimes it's more difficult for people to understand that branding and marketing starts within the home, right? Being poor, coming from the poor side of town, coming from low income housing, coming from where you would go to class. And this was very common. You go to class and people be talking about your neighborhood, be like, oh, those people that live in this area, blah, 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 blah. they would talk about how horrible where you lived look, but you're there and you're present. You know that if they just walk inside of the neighborhood, because they're driving by, they see what's on the outside, right? They don't drive into the neighborhood. They never walked into your house to see that your house was clean. So they have this whole perception of who you are. But internally, if you're already trained, if you already know who you are, you can stand up and you can say proudly to the teacher who talked about your neighborhood, as I did as a young teenager, you can say who you are because you know that, because it's been instilled inside of you. Just because you have less, you're not less than, right? So you will be able to stand up to those individuals who, because they feel that they have more, because they feel that they were raised differently, that they went to this side of town, that they have more value, they have more contribute than you. You'll be able to stand up and face that and say, no, I am just as great as you are. You know, it's not that I'm putting you down, but I understand my own greatness that's inside of me because God has instilled that inside of me. I know who I am, and you won't allow others to take that from you. So those are very early signs of branding and marketing in my life. And so it's very easy for me then to change the mindset of those individuals inside of an organization, to reposition how they think about their organization, to make sure that they understand the mindset and what the organization was founded to do, because we are the greatest marketing professionals for our organization. It's got to start within. So if you don't feel you win within, you won't be able to share that outside with the world to help them win. One of the things people, after I was first named acting president, and all of, social media just blew up with the, accolades, and, very surprising and a humbling experience for me. But the best thing of all of that was when my son posted Kings, Mississippi. And so that meant something to me, because I instilled that into my children. Don't be ashamed of where you started from. If you don't accept your start, right? You can't erase where you started from. You've got to accept all of you. You can't accept part of you. You got to heal aspects of your life that have been difficult for you in order for you to truly be able to move forward. And so it is important that people understand that you can't be ashamed of who you are. You can't be ashamed of whose you are. And people should be able to see that in your actions, not in just your words.
Wow, you are so amazing. I just did a post on this about a month ago of how we cannot be successful in any relationship, whether it's work, romantic, what have you, family, if you don't heal your inner child. A lot of people, the reason why they are difficult at jobs, or why they may not be as successful or productive as they should, or effective, if you will, is because it may be some things that lingered from a traumatic experience that people don't even realize. And so I think that it's so important for us to heal ourselves, whether it's a childhood traumatic experience or adulthood. You can have a traumatic experience at work. People don't understand that how you treat people. I always tell people, be intentional when you deal with people. Treat everybody kind, because you don't know the battles that people are facing. I can walk around with a smile on my face and look like I have it together, but you may not know if I'm depressed or feel lonely. I'm just using it for example purposes only, but it's so important for us. We don't know the hell that a person may go through at home. We don't know. And so I'm so happy to hear you are intentional with people. And as we come to a close, we are seeing HBCUs get a lot of recognition now. Whether it's because of our vice president is a graduate of an HBCU, but there are still people, particularly our African-American family, that don't feel that HBCUs can get you the job that you should have, or it will open doors for you, that it will be better to go to a PWI. So as we close, can you tell us the importance of HBCUs, and what do you want your legacy to be?
So the importance of HBCUs, and this is for all of them, they were founded to educate once enslaved individuals. And so, but they didn't allow that to just be their legacy, right? They taught and trained their students to be the best of the best, right? HBCUs are nurturing environments. They are environments where they take students as they are and they get them to where they need to go. I can recall, and this is a true story, my cousin had received full scholarship to Spelman. She was ready to go, and she called me and she was all upset and, and I'm talking to her, telling her to calm down. And she's like, mom and daddy said, I got to go to Alcorn. Just because they went to Alcorn don't mean I want to go to Alcorn. Alcorn doesn't have, what I'm looking for. And I'm like, what are you looking for? She was all serious, And so I said to her, I said, well, did they say that you could not go to Spelman? And she's like, no, they said that I could go, but I have to leave my car and that I would have to figure it out and I may have to get a job and do this and do that. And they said, if I go to Alcorn for 2 years, then I can transfer to Spelman. And I said, honey, I love you, but let me give you some advice. I would advise that you go to Alcorn State University. I said, I promise you, going to Alcorn State University is not going to sidetrack you. It's not going to prevent you from doing anything in life that you want to do. And in 2 years, if you want to transfer and go to Spelman, then do that. They're willing to pay for you to do that. And so that's what you should do. And she went to Alcorn State. Now, I already knew that once she stepped on the yard, she wasn't going nowhere else, right? She didn't know that. But I knew that she would become a part of that environment. She was not limited because she went to Alcorn State University. She studied abroad. She traveled the world in the 4 years that she was there. She is a professor today, a doctorate. She is doctorate today, and she works at Penn State. So she was not limited because she went to Alcorn State. You can go to Alcorn State or any of our historically Black colleges and university and go forth to be whoever you are meant to be. Another student I met my first week at Alcorn State, walking across the yard with a brown paper bag. And I called him over, and of course, he had alcohol in it, and I took it from him and I poured it out. And of course, he gave me all kinds of excuses and all, but guess what? He's successfully working today. And he thanks me all the time for taking that bottle from him and for making him come to my office and talking harshly to him and giving him, the lay of the land and why he came to Alcorn State. But that's the beauty of historically Black colleges and university. We have nurturing environments. We accept our students as they are, and we take them to where we know they want to go. We ask them, what are your goals? What are your aspirations in life? Where do you want to go? And we help them achieve that. And that's the beauty of historically Black colleges and universities. They're just as connected as any other institution throughout the United States. And what I want my legacy to be is what it is already. When my oldest son moved to Texas, he called me up and he graduated with engineering major. And he called me up and he had met this fellow student working in software engineering. And he said, Mom, this guy knows you. And I was like, no, I don't recognize that name. And he's like, he came back a few days later and he told me the student's name again. And I was like, I don't recall him being a student of mine. And then he said, well, Mom, he said that you came into McAllister's like 2-3 times a week and got sweet tea. And he told you he was failing and you gave him your card. And then you met him and you set him up with a tutor and you kept in touch with him. You made sure that he passed English and he passed college algebra. That's the legacy there. The impact on students that we may not remember their name, but we may remember the touch that we had through the experiences that they shared with us. And that's the beauty of historically Black colleges and universities, that we have the power to influence students to recognize the greatness that already lives within them because of who they are. And they may not recognize that, but leaders that work on HBCU campuses know the importance of instilling that in each and every one of our students.
Mm-hmm. Wow, so amazing. Me being at Alcorn, when I graduated from high school, I only knew about 1 or 2 other people, and Faraday is not far from Alcorn at all, but I only knew 1 or 2 other people that went to Alcorn. And where I'm from, usually if people go to HBCUs, they're either going to go to Southern or Grambling. And so everyone talked about me saying, what kind of college experience that you're in the middle of nowhere? And I have to say, I had the best college experience at Alcorn. There was never a boring day. All we had was each other. And Alcorn taught me how to survive. If I could survive Alcorn, then go to Southern University and survive, I can survive anywhere. It taught me to how to dot all my I's, cross all my T's. And I wasn't known by my student ID, I was known by my name. And I had a community of people there that some has transitioned on, but some are still alive, and I keep in contact with them. Mary Walls and, so many, Clinton Bristow, Leslie Baskerville, just so many people that I met at Alcorn that are just amazing people. And it saddens me when you hear African Americans downplay HBCUs, when you don't think that you are good enough. I think enough of myself that I can sit at the table with a graduate of Princeton or Harvard or Yale, MIT, Penn State, and I still feel that I am just as valuable, that I am just as smart, and that I bring something to the table. And so you limit yourself when you feel you're devaluing yourself when you feel that just because you graduated from a HBCU such as Alcorn or Kentucky State, that you don't think that you deserve a seat at the table. So I just want to tell you that I can understand why God has blessed you so much, because first of all, you are beautiful, and not just in with looks, just overall, just a beautiful person. You're so humble, and you don't meet that often. So many times some people who don't even have a reason to be arrogant are arrogant. And the fact that you take the time, that you nurture, you help, whatever you can do to support, you will. And I'm just excited about what God is going to do in your life, because this acting presidency is not the end. This is just the beginning of where God is going to take you. And I am praying for you. I am rooting for you. I love you. I thank you for coming on here. I would love to have you back. You have really inspired and blessed me and so many other people. And so thank you for being the phenomenal woman that you are. Thank you for being Black Girl Magic. Thank you for being the queen that you are, that we can look up to and say, hey, if she made it from Vicksburg, Mississippi, if she made it, then I can make it. So thank you so much from the bottom and top of my heart. How can people follow, if they want to know more about Kentucky State? How can they learn about Kentucky State, and how can people follow you?
Great. Well, Kentucky State's website is kysu.edu. Again, that's kysu.edu. And we're at Kentucky State U on social media. So at KY State, STATE, and U on social media. That's on all of our social media platform. And you guys can follow me on social media. I'm at Clara Renee. And Dr. Tiff, I just wanted to thank you so much for having me on. Thank you for your words of encouragement. And I certainly appreciate the prayers. And I just want to say that Kentucky State, just like all of our HBCUs, is a great place to be, provides an excellent higher education. So for the students that are looking for a place that will take you as you are and help you become who you would be, please look at Kentucky State and all of our HBCUs. They are where you want to be.
Wow. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you.